Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome back to the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and this is an all-new episode with Kevin Cahoon, who's starring in Shucked on Broadway, Tony nominated for his role as Peanut. Okay, I gotta drop the accent. I left North Carolina a long time ago. This episode is one of my favorites. This guy has an amazing story. He became a professional rodeo clown at the age of, drumroll please, 6. He was a rodeo clown at the age of 6 and was the youngest professional rodeo clown in the country at that time. Grew up in a Texas rodeo family, and his story to make it onto the Broadway stage is one that only he can tell. So I'm going to let him tell it. All right, y'all. Find me online, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever, Threads, Facebook. You know the drill. Leave a rating and review. And everybody, please enjoy this episode with Kevin Cahoon.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is a Tony nominee for his breakout comedic role of Peanut in Shucked, which marks his Broadway return after a 16-year break. Critically praised for his role as drag queen Bobby Barnes on Glow. Other TV credits include Monarch, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Maisel, Nurse Jackie, and Modern Family, just to name a few. In addition to Shucked, I can't say that without the accent. Yeah. Additional Broadway credits include The Wedding Singer, The Wedding Sinner, well, same thing. The Wedding Singer, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Rocky Horror, The Lion King, and The Who's Tommy. He was a professional rodeo clown at the age of 6 and won Junior Star Search at the age of 13. Hot damn, Kevin Cahoon. Welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Dude, I want to start with age 6 rodeo clown because I got a little boy. I got 2 kids, 2 boys. One's about to turn 7. He won't even look at a horse, let alone ride a bull.
Listen.
Well,
I was on a horse before I could walk. That is...
Really?
Yes. I'm from Texas. My dad was a calf roper in the rodeo. My parents met in the rodeo club in high school. And I grew up an only child surrounded by every animal you could possibly imagine. You know, horses and donkeys and cows and pigs and goats, and I had a monkey and a raccoon and armadillos, and I mean, it really was like
the monkey,
a Dr. Dolittle. Like there were animals everywhere, and I've never been afraid of any kind of animal at all. And you know, I was on a horse since I was a small child, and I would see my dad in the rodeos, and I said, I want to be a rodeo clown, and so my parents said, okay, let's try. And the next thing I knew, from 5 to 15, we were doing the rodeo circuit in Texas and Oklahoma. And every weekend we were loading up the horse trailer and off we went. And I even did the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, which is like the biggest in the world, at the Astrodome. I did that for 10 years. Through my sophomore year of high school. And then the youngest rodeo clown thing in the world was getting a little shaky when you're a sophomore year in high school. Really,
doesn't the youngest rodeo clown in the world have a mustache now?
Yeah, what's going on? You know,
what's wrong with that guy?
Yeah. But anyway, it was incredible. That was my first introduction to performing. And I would do comedic acts in between the events while they're setting up for the next event. And I would tell jokes with the announcer at the rodeo. I had other clowns that I worked with in comedic acts. And, you know, I think about Shucked, which is I'm kind of just telling jokes in cowboy boots in a rural setting, just like I did for the 5 to 15. It's funny how it all just sort of came back full circle.
Wow. Well, I work with a lot of clowns too, but none of them wear makeup.
Hey, so. That's okay. Listen.
Those damn clowns. The age 6 though, I mean, maybe this is the New York, it's a different time, right? When we grew up and I was, and my almost 7-year-old now, I would not think would have the conscious wherewithal to be like, this animal could kill me.
Right. I've never really been worried about that, to be honest. And I didn't do the bullfighting or the barrels, which is, when the bulls are involved. But, I've never been scared of any. And I don't love snakes, I'll be honest with you. When you see those guys in the subway and in Times Square with a snake around their neck, it's not my favorite thing in the world. But
Well, speaking of animals that can kill you, let's talk about Ed McMahon and Star Search.
hey,
Hey-yo! So Ed McMahon, yeah. Junior Star Search, he did Junior Star Search too, right? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So
the whole franchise.
yeah, right. He's everything. And so, what was the progression that you were going through from, rodeo and rodeo club, by the way, which I was like, wait, there's a whole rodeo club? I didn't even.
Oh, yes. It's a whole subculture.
So rodeo club performing, and you're like, well, I'm just going to start doing something. Or I guess, what did you win for? Was it singing? And because rodeo clowning isn't singing.
No. And they had asked me to audition as an actor because Star Search had acting categories at that time. And they were coming through Houston, and they were going around the country and trying to cast their season of Star Search. And I at 13 or 12, I guess at the time, said, no, I want to sing. I want to sing. I don't want to audition as an actor. So I sang Some People from Gypsy, and that got me the gig. And the next thing I knew, we were in LA, and at the Aquarius Theater, which is now the Nickelodeon Theater on Sunset. That was my first introduction to LA, my first introduction to New York and getting an agent. And I had done a TV commercial when I was 9, and my mom signed me up for theater classes when I was 10 in Houston. I did a lot of shows as a kid at Theater Under the Stars, and I just loved it and fell in love, really head over heels in love with theater at that young age. And, Star Search opened up a whole other life. And at that point, at 13, I started living during the summers in New York City and auditioning. And I did I didn't have much success except doing TV commercials. And that was incredible. And I did commercials for everything you could imagine. And that, all through high school and through NYU, that helped me get through NYU. And yeah. And it wasn't until I graduated from NYU that I started working really in theater and playing roles as opposed to just doing commercials. I started playing roles. But Star Search was,
did you have a type that you were cast in for the commercials?
Always the nerd. Always the nerd. No question. And that was fine with me. Listen, I was happy to just have a job, and it was fun, and I had the time of my life. But it's funny, I've sort of there's been 3 sort of periods of types for my career. I've went through a whole nerd stage. Then I sort of went through a whole rock and roll drag queen period where that was everything. And then now I'm in my country era with Monarch, the television show that I did on Fox. And this, it's so funny how the business and this career shifts you to, what you're doing at the moment. But listen, as long as I'm working, and I care.
Well, it's recency bias, right? And right. I think it's funny because casting agents and even the public in general, but in a business where we're supposed to be incredibly creative, I feel like some of the casting choices are often incredibly uncreative because you're just grabbing the person you just saw play the person you're trying to cast.
Sure, absolutely. No, that is very, very, very true.
So when, so you went to NYU then.
I did.
And NYU, for what? For performing at that time? Was there a moment when you were like, this is what I have to do? Or was there ever another time when you're like, maybe I'll try astrophysics?
No. When I was a kid and I was rodeoing, I did think at that time, maybe I want to be a veterinarian, because I didn't know you could have a career as a rodeo clown. But the minute that I started at 9 or 10, I knew this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I got to do incredible shows at Tuts as a kid. I did MAME with Marilyn May, and I did Chaplin with Anthony Newley, who was, a giant musical theater star and did a lot of movies. And, the people that Chandra Wilson, who plays Dr. Bailey on Grey's Anatomy, we grew up together at Theater Under the Stars. And I was just watching all of these incredible people spend their lives, doing what they loved and doing what had fallen in love with. So I knew that there was, and everyone always said, well, what are you going to fall back on? What are you going to fall back on? And I just didn't even think about that. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I think that's part of why a lot of people get into the business is because they don't know how hard it is. Like, and that's why people do a lot of things. If they knew how hard it was, they would never start it.
That's so true.
And then, the other thing is just like, well, I don't know what else I do, so I guess I'll do this.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I hear all the time. Is like, if you can see yourself do anything else, do that.
Right. They say, I've heard that saying many times.
Yeah. So then, Star Search, I guess it's interesting because Star Search leads to an agent. Getting the agent is always
the hardest part.
Super hard. One of the hardest things. Right?
I lucked out. I really did. I see so many of the people I went to school with, and I was already ahead of the game because of what had happened to me when I was 13, and I still, Edie Robb, dear manager of mine, is still my manager to this day.
Wow.
Since the age of 13. Yeah.
Wow. He was your manager when he was 13?
She was.
Oh, she?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a young manager.
Yeah. Legendary. And she lives in LA and still to this day.
That's incredible.
Isn't that incredible?
You've had somebody who's been with you the entire time, which I think
the entire time.
Actually, speak real quick for those who don't know, what is the difference between a manager and an agent?
Okay, so what I like to think of it's two separate offices, and everybody has eyes on your career and eyes on the breakdowns and eyes on auditions and projects. I just like to think that you're covered in a double way, having a manager and an agent. But an agent will get you auditions through the breakdowns, and they will negotiate your contracts. But a manager is sort of a boots on the ground, even manifesting other jobs that may not be coming through the breakdown, setting up general meetings with you, and they also get you an agent manager. Mm-hmm. So my first agency in New York City was called J. Michael Bloom, and my manager, Edie, at that time, I was probably 13, got me with J. Michael Bloom. And then J. Michael Bloom dissolved as a company and they started Innovative Artist, or sort of like that company merged with Innovative Artist. And I'm with Innovative Artist to this day. So it was those connections that happened all those years ago that are still sort of guiding my career.
Yeah, I think it's so cool to hear these stories and hear how people work together. Because in my experience, I think like managers, they have fewer clients and they're more hands-on.
Right.
And agents are they represent a bunch of people. There's senior agents and junior agents and whatever that case is, right? So there's a hierarchy, but I feel like the managers are directing the agents to tell the agents what to get you in for and to make sure they actually happen.
Yeah.
The meetings actually happen.
I think that's true. And then, sometimes you'll have auditions that come through that are just from the manager's office, or sometimes you'll have auditions that come through just the agent's office. And I love my agents at Innovative Artist, Brian Davidson and then Stephen Lamont on the West Coast are my point people. And they are, they're like family to me. And everyone at Edie's office, Station 3 management, is like family. It's just, I'm very, 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 very fortunate. Very
so
fortunate.
Yeah, you are. And it's cool that you acknowledge that too. The clowning into singing into nerd commercials and whatnot, it's funny, it's comedic. And then obviously now like you're in the spotlight again for Shucked, which is comedic, but like the dramatic stuff, like you're not just one type of dude, which I think it speaks to again kind of like a range that you're able to produce. So when you're going from like the different phases and whatnot, like the middle phase of dressing up and exploring like the other sides of life, was that reflective of sort of where you were going personally, or did it all just kind of like work through on its own?
No, I would definitely, absolutely say that is true. When I I was doing The Lion King, the original cast of The Lion King, playing Ed the hyena, which some would argue is a nerdy hyena. And at that point, I saw Hedwig and the Angry Inch off Broadway in previews on a night off. I went to take ATS. Everybody was talking about this show, and I went by myself, and I thought, oh, I've got to be a part of this show. And so I bulldozed my way in the door. I was not on the top of anyone's list, that's for sure. And then I got the job, and I became a one-show-a-week standby for John Cameron Mitchell at Jane Street. And I left The Lion King, which everybody thought I was nuts because it was a principal role in the hottest show of all hot shows of its time. And I said, no, I got to go. I'm going to leave. And I got paid $400 a week. And I didn't know if it was going to run a month. I didn't know if it was going to run 6 months, a year. Nobody knew. But I knew that I had to try. And no one had ever seen me do a role that was this serious, also funny, but at the end of the day, just sort of like a cathartic heartbreak through rock and roll music, 8 times a week. And it completely changed my life, that show and that role. It allowed the industry and the business to sort of see me in a different way. And it allowed me as a human being to stand in my own shoes as a gay man publicly for the first time. And I was probably 26. Not that I was hiding anything, but I just don't think that I was sure of my own skin and aware of my own skin to be present in it in front of the world until Hedwig came along. And I mean, John Cameron Mitchell and Stephen Trask wrote this prophetic piece of theater that was way before its time and way before the world. And it allowed me it opened up a whole new world for me, a new life, a new way that the business saw me. It's funny, you were saying a lot of comedic things. When most of the time when I'm cast on television, it's dramas. I mean, the half-hour comedies that I've done are very, very few and far between. It's all hour-long dramas, as opposed to the theater, where it's comedic and musical theater, and it's a fortunate position to be in. That I've been able to dance back and forth.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for an ad or two. Stay tuned. And now we're back. I was just doing the math real quick. So OBC, you said that you were in the OBC of Lion King, which it opened November 1997.
Yep.
So we're talking like winter 97 into 98. And it's doing the math too. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, in your early, I guess, mid-20s at that point. Like you said, I think you said you were 26 or
26,
something.
I think I started doing readings of The Lion King when I was 24, maybe.
Yeah. And I was reading too that, let's see, because of your upbringing, you said you didn't come out until you were 27.
Right. It was that's when I had my first boyfriend for real.
Right. So when was Hedwig in all of this? Was Hedwig like before or after you're like, all right, I'm going to start like embracing who I am?
No, they were in tandem. Yeah. I would say, Lion King really was the first boyfriend, I would say. So that was the production, not the readings, the production. So, 26, 27. Yeah, 26, 27. And I look at my young friends now who are so comfortable in who they are. And so it's so accessible to them, and it's incredible. I mean, this was a time, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was on the books. I mean, Will and Grace, I don't even think was on TV yet. RuPaul's Drag Race certainly wasn't even thought of. Like, it was just a different time culturally. And we're in such a better place, as a society because of it, because so many more people are able to live their lives.
Yeah. Yes. Some might argue we've taken a huge step backwards.
We are. However, I think that's just because the train has left the station.
Oh, yeah.
And the old guard knows that, and they're grasping at anything. But I think, the arc of history, it's we're going to be okay. I think
Did
can't be complacent, but we're going to be fine.
Yes, I agree. Your family, your peers, the rodeo club back in Texas, do they know? I guess like being in Lion King, that's a big Disney movie that everybody knows a story about. Like, oh great, like no questions there. He's a hyena. That's all great. But then going into Hedwig, was that like eyebrow raise
Oh,
from
sure.
people who knew you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was for me too. It is a big step to take, and it was the greatest gift of my life. But I'm sure there were people who thought, he's doing what? What's happening?
Yeah.
And my dad and my mom, I said, okay, I'm going to go do this show, who were the most incredible. And my mom is still the most incredible, supportive, loving, wonderful. Like, I'm an only child, and whatever I wanted to do, they made sure that I got to do it in some way, fashion, or form, like above and beyond. But I said, I'm going to leave the Lion King. I'm going to do this show. This is what it's about. And I don't think my dad had ever even seen a drag queen before,
Right.
Until he came to Jane Street to see Hedwig and the Angry Inch. But anyway, before I left, I said, so on David Letterman, they're going to do a number from Hedwig. And I want you to see the number, and then you'll see what I'm going to do downtown at Jane Street. And so David Letterman's intro, I kid you not, said, here's a new off-Broadway musical. It's all the rage. It's creating tons of discussion. But I can guarantee you one thing, folks. It's not The Lion King. And I thought, oh, God.
Well, there's
That's what he
setup.
said. That's what he said in the intro.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That had to be some sort of indication, though, for you to be able to say, look, my show's on Letterman. Because that was...
Right.
Right? Letterman and Leno. Those were the places you were seen.
Yes.
In the 90s.
And that was a huge deal when they got that booking at Hedwig down at Jade Street. Like, when that came through, it was like giant.
Yeah.
And then it just, there was Rolling Stone, and everybody in the world who was so cool in downtown was coming to see Hedwig. And it just, there was magic in it. I mean, truly, I know that sounds cliche, but there was magic around that theater and in that just stardust. Like, I did the show for so many cool people that it's unbelievable. I pinch myself. And my name is in the liner notes of that cast recording. And it's something that I cherish more than anything in the world. How cool.
You talk so fondly of it. It's beautiful. And obviously, like, what you're doing, I guess career-wise, is reflecting where you are on a personal journey as well. And so now, Shucked just opened this year, 2023, on Broadway. But you've been with the process. What, you're the only original cast member from the reading or workshop or something 8 years ago?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was probably longer than we did. It's probably been 9 years now, maybe 8, but I auditioned that long ago. And Ken Clark, who originated the role of Bo at the Dallas Theater Center, is our standby for Bo here in New York. But in between, Ken had other fabulous Broadway shows he was doing and wasn't a part of that. But I auditioned that long ago, and they have allowed me to stay this entire time. And I am so grateful. At one point, they cleaned house completely. Like,
yeah, I remember.
Brandy Clark, Shane McAnally, and Robert Horn and I were the only ones that were still with the project. And that is producers, designers, cast, creative teams, you name it. So every time that there would be a new incarnation, I was just so glad that they were calling me to come back on the back of the pickup truck, so to speak.
Yeah, it was originally going out as the Hee Haw musical, and then just got completely rebranded into what it is now.
Yeah, no. And it's far better. I mean, it really it found its heart, it found its voice, it found its time. If this, we had an out of town scheduled for Washington, D.C. before the pandemic, and that out of town was canceled because of the shutdown with the pandemic. I don't know if the show would have landed the way it has landed pre-pandemic, pre Trump, pre sort of social unrest. Like it feels like we had to go through all of that to swing back around for this show to find its right audience.
I want to dive into that, and
Mhm.
it's a great opportunity to peel back the layers, or shuck the corn, if you will.
Hey, I'm ready.
To get to the heart. Let's get to the kernel of what Shucked is about. It's not. Wait, what's the center of a corn cob called? Is this the cob? The corn?
It would
The
just
corny
be
cob?
yeah, right.
The cob? Okay, let's get to the cob of this story.
Let's get to the cob.
We're cobbing in here. So the the heart of it, I mean, the show has heart, and it's about a story of acceptance and ultimately love.
Mm-hmm.
Where on the surface, it's like it's a comedy about corn,
Right.
and it's a laugh a minute. Don't get me wrong. Like, holy shit, Robert Horn wrote a book.
I mean,
like,
didn't he though? Come on. Unprecedented and singular. No one does what he does. No one can do what he does. Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote this amazing book, and you are one of many just delivering these puns that speak my language like no other.
Hey, dad jokes. Well, you are dad, right?
That's right.
That's
right.
Moments. There you go.
I was dad joking before I was a dad. So the dad having kids was just it was like, here, you've earned your dadness. Here you go. But yeah, the heart of it, I guess, speak to like sort of the different incarnations, right? Because 8 years ago, I don't know what it was like. All I know is kind of like the social media, like swirl, or not, I guess swirl's maybe kind of the wrong name for it, but like what I've heard through the interwebs. And I never saw or read anything about it before what it is now. So like, how has it evolved, and like what's been dug into, what's been left behind?
Yeah. Well, 8 years ago, it was called Moonshine, That Hee Haw Musical. And at that time, it was a pastiche, sort of a nod and a wink to the old television show Hee Haw. And it was a very simple story. The story was too simple, where the girl leaves her town to come to, because she feels like she needs to discover who she is. And she goes to Tampa, and she brings this guy back that she falls in love with. And then he sees the rocks and whatever. But since that time, it's really become about a community and a town. And there's a major problem for the town in that their livelihood, which is the corn, has started to die. So they have got a problem. That forces her to leave to find a solution. And then she brings this guy back who, in sort of like a Harold Hill, Elmer Gantry kind of way. And I think that the piece grew when it became about a collective as opposed to about an individual. It became about an entire town that was having to come to terms with what it had done to itself and how it was going to fix itself. Will we allow this outsider in? You know, I think this major rewrite was done when the walls were going up at the border. And there were walls everywhere. And Maisie's I Want song is called Walls. And it's about a wall of corn that has started to die. Should she go outside? Should she let someone else back in? And I think it resonates now with audiences in ways that it could never have resonated before. But it's about, if you let those people that you are scared of in to your life and into your heart and your soul and your mind, you will be better for it. You will grow. You will see the world in a different way. And I think the corn, so to speak, or the world will be brighter for it at the end. Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah. Just, it had to be about more than just one girl's problem. It had to be a collective problem, which we were all going through in a pandemic and with the social upheaval that we were going through.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. Yeah, and I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, which is like every character in Shucked I've gone to school with.
That's your kinfolk. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, them's my kinfolk. And we had a, there was an unofficial gun club in my high school.
I got a 22 when I was 14 years old as a kid.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean,
Yeah.
Never used it.
Good.
Quickly sold it.
For corn.
Hey.
And what I really like about Shucked is that while acknowledging that there are some challenges in isolated communities, especially in small town rural areas, the show doesn't make fun of them at all. It doesn't make them the butt of the joke. They are telling the jokes.
That's exactly right. And that is rare in popular culture, I think. And there have been so many people at the stage door who have said, we're from Iowa, we're from Ohio, Nebraska. It's the first time we've ever felt like we've seen ourselves represented on a Broadway stage. And I think that's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it is giving. When I was thinking about Peanut and Peanut's place in the storytelling of the show, I thought about a lot of those country comedians like Minnie Pearl and Jerry Clower, String Bean, that a lot of them came out of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression, but they became American iconic characters because they were speaking to a community that was never spoken to in popular culture. Will Rogers is similar. They were a voice for those people. They were relatable for those audiences. And that's why they became such a huge, Minnie Pearl's hat's in the Smithsonian for a reason. It's because she connected those people to radio and television and film in a way that they had not been connected with before.
The audience feedback, I enjoyed that you said that they are coming to you and they're recognizing that they're seeing themselves represented. And have you ever had a conversation, or has Alex Newell ever mentioned to you something about, like, you have these people who are never going to see someone like me in real life, most likely, right? Somebody who is just so different from the norm that small town people don't get to see all the time.
Right.
And it's accepted and it's positive, and Alex slays and celebrated. Right.
Kills.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that Alex has that experience, and that is it's incredible for the world. It just makes the world a better place, a stronger place. It's, the show is about, we are stronger together. That's what the show is all about. And when America is at its best, it's when we are all working together. We are listening to each other. We are communicating. We are accepting, or we're learning to not, listen, I can't go with that, but I do appreciate you for A, B, C, and D. And we can connect on those things. And, that's what the show is about. We're stronger together. We really are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Peanut's this wonderful through line of just like, I feel like Peanut's kind of a little bit of a voice of reason, like pointing out everything that's so absurd and wrong that it's just like, oh, of course that's ridiculous. Let's make fun of it. Let's make fun of that, not ourselves.
Well, when the stakes get too high in the show, and for Bo, his brother, he comes in with the jokes. He's like, nope. We're going to tether you here. I'm going to get you tied down. We're going to be okay. So he's kind of like, I think a Peanut is sort of like a shaman, not in a way that he's like making potions, but he's a shaman, a spirit. Like, he marries everybody. He buries everybody. There's something that is spiritual about his existence in Cobb County.
He probably blesses the cow's milk and the corn's milk and every other thing. Yeah.
Don't you know?
Yeah, you need to have a corn milk blessing ceremony before the show every Tuesday when you come back.
We should. Maybe we'll start that outside on 41st Street. Come to the cow milk blessing.
Listen, you need to do corn for corn to compete with ham for ham.
Hey, we did do ham for ham, actually, but we should do corn for corn. I mean, we did ride a tractor pulling a trailer through Times Square. Did you?
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, how many Broadway shows can say that?
Yeah, dude, it was so fun. I remember I was at opening night for the show, and I remember there was like, you had corn shucking contests and all sorts.
That great?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
it really was.
It was so much fun. The marketing, the press and marketing teams for the show have outdone themselves with the weirdness, the successful weirdness that they're able to do.
And like, today. This is Friday, July 14th. at 4:00, you go on the Shucked Instagram, and there is a scavenger hunt through New York City for signed CDs and pairs of tickets to the show. I mean,
I remember.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. I love that interactivity of all of that. It's really, really cool. What I was going to ask a second ago, I think, if I remember correctly, was like the comedy, the stage. You do the funny stuff on stage, and then the serious stuff on TV and film. And do you have a preference of what you're doing, or is it just sort of like, I guess right now, especially being Peanut on stage and getting the Tony nomination and whatnot, so people are seeing you for this, and again, recency bias in people's minds. Are you getting auditions now for TV and film that are still serious stuff?
Well, we'll see. We're in the middle of a strike.
Oh, yes.
A writer strike and an actor strike. And so that is all fresh and new. And Shucked opening and the wonderful, incredible gift of a Tony nomination is all fresh and new. So we'll see what happens at the end of the day. I'm just happy to have auditions, and I'm happy to have jobs. And I don't think I have a preference. If it's just interesting characters and interesting situations, that's enough for me. And there's nothing like a live audience and doing live theater. There's also nothing like the challenge of doing a TV or film where every day is a different location and a different scene and different, they're both wonderful. They're both wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. When I used to audition all the time, I would do TV and film was the bad guy. I was the dark, sinister guy.
Uh-huh.
And then on stage, it was the ingenue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I just be a bad guy on stage for once? I want to explore what that's like.
I mean, that's fun. Yeah,
that's
right?
Fun. I want to, yeah. Anyway, so 3 questions I ask everyone to wrap up the episode. The first one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
Heart. I would say that motivates me. Connecting with people, loving people through just being, walking to the deli on the corner or getting to perform and have them connect. That's what motivates me, I think. I think empathy is the most important trait that anyone in the world can have. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I challenge with myself every day. Like, how can you be empathetic towards this person and what they're going through and what they're feeling and their plight and their cause? And I would say that connecting with heart in one way or another is what motivates me.
What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Okay. The advice I would say is follow that tiny voice in your head that is telling you to do something. If you have an idea for a show, if you have an idea for anything, if you have ideas to go to dinner with a certain person, make that dinner happen. Follow your inner voice. Don't think, I can't, I won't. Well, that's for them. They should do that. No, that is you. There's only one you. You are singular. Your ideas, your motivations, your ambitions, they are all yours. And whether it's in your personal life or your creative life, follow the voice. Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Follow the Yellow Corn Road.
Yeah.
If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh my God. Now that is the hardest question anyone's ever asked. I'm not going to say Shucked, even though I want to say Shucked. I'm going to say Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
I was expecting that.
Is that what you were expecting?
Yeah, totally.
So predictable.
All right. Yeah, where can we find you online on the socials?
Yes, at Kevin Cahoon. That's it. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Threads?
I have not done Threads yet, and I've never done TikTok, but I'm on the other 3. So
I did Threads the other day, and I'm like, all right, this ain't bad. It's a lot better than Twitter. It's a lot better than Twitter, I'll tell you that.
Okay, good. Maybe I need to go to Threads.
No, go Threads. All right, yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and now Threads and all the places. Of course, you can find me on all platforms that you listen to podcasts. Leave a rating, review wherever you can. Thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for intro and outro music. And Kevin Cahoon, thank you so much for this lovely conversation.
Thanks for loving Shucked, because I love Shucked so much too. So
it's so good, so good.
Thank you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.